go to Courage to Change.
Courage to Change. That's on Facebook, right?
The Courage to Change website.
Greetings and welcome to the Courage to Change Now News Hour. I'm your host, Daniel Reeves, and I am also the news director that was served for this movement. I'd like to share a few things about myself. I am a student at the Alabama A&M University. I got my undergrad studying communications media, and now I am pursuing my master's degree in communication science. I would like to take the time out to thank you for joining us today. We have a interesting guest with us today. I hope you all are staying safe out there in this pandemic. Um, you know, Wash your hands, stay healthy. Nevertheless, some more things about me, about this movement. Where our goal is to bring content to the people around the world that is factual, true, non-biased. You have things being tossed around, being said about fake media. Um, our current president actually made that statement as well. So, in that case, who could you trust, especially in these sensitive times or trying times? People need something that is pure and helpful and resourceful. So, we like to take some time to introduce ourselves and to thank you once again for joining us as this organization is new and we look forward to you sticking with us as we grow. Now, without further ado, I would like to get to our guest. He is here to discuss the book Black Labor, White Wealth. Now, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Hillman Muhammad. Mr. Hillman, how are you?
Yeah, yes, brother Daniel. I'm sorry, man. I was muted out.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you taking on this position in this time when our youth are need to show that they are worthy of handling some adult matters and
Mm,
in newscasting. This is something that the Courage to Change Now is an initiative under the Black Wall Street Alabama platform. Black Wall Street Alabama is a 501c3 approved by the IRS. And we are doing this to bring about education to our community, to our children that are being lost in this mix of miseducation. You know, Carter G. Woodson put a book out in the early 30s uh, about the miseducation of the Negro. Well, that is still in play, although we have changed from Negro, from all other adjectives that they've called us, up to African American. But my teacher told me that we were black because all of those other names only weaken us. The more words you use to describe a thing, the weaker it becomes. So I'd like your perspective on taking on this challenge. Now, you're a communication major or study for masters in the communication media area.
communication science, yes.
Science, music, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
You got all those things. But what you're doing now is not studying, you're actually doing. And I applaud you for that. A young 25-year-old brother, man, black man at that, to set an example that we are more than just football players, basketball players, baseball players, tennis, and golf, and all of that. You know, we can take on some really great challenges in the world to bring something newsworthy, something intellectual to our people in the form of educating them. Uh, because nobody can tell our story, Brother Daniel, like we can. And no one needs to tell it like our youth, because as Black Wall Street is based upon God, our ancestors, and our future generation, you guys are the ones that's going to enjoy this. And I really appreciate you showing compassionate for the crisis that we are enduring now. But Brother Daniel, I want to bring to the listening audience that we've been in a crisis. Our crisis didn't start with the Corolla 19.
Mm-hmm.
Our crisis started with us being taken from our motherland in the hulls of ships to to be brought here to produce wealth for other people, that brought us here for a purpose, and that is to use our free labor to enrich themselves. And after we have done all of that, we still find ourselves at the low end of the wealth scale.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's something we want to discuss today. I know I've been reading a book by one of our pioneer in the industry or in our flight. I hate to call it civil right because I don't know anybody named Civil that need a right or have a right. I know black people that don't have any right, don't have any power. So civil, when you find civil, then we need to discuss that with civil. But right now, we want to discuss something about our condition, which is the black people that were brought here to do one thing, and that is enrich the elites of this world. And as you can tell, I'm very passionate about
That's
the subject. I'm very compassionate about the time that we are living in with the unraveling of this, not just nation, but the world.
I see.
Oh,
And
yes.
and with it being understood that you are the founding CEO of Black Wall Street, Alabama, you're also the creator of the Courage to Change Now movement. Now, with saying all that, the Courage to Change Now, what can we implement now to help add on to what you were saying? Those past issues are that crisis. How could we help ourselves in this crisis to empower ourselves? Could you go more into that?
Well, Brother Daniel, I was in the limousine business at the last crash, 2008, 2009. I had four cars, but with those four cars, I had so much business going that I was clocking high six-figure income. And I had just added a couple of more cars to my fleet. And in 2008 and 2009, I lost 50% of my business. So what I learned then is that I didn't know anything about wealth. I didn't know anything about money.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
knew how to make money because I was taught that. I
Right.
knew how to spend money because I followed the practice of the norm. You make money, you buy your nice car, you buy your new house, you go on vacation, you do all that. But I had nothing really to fall back on. And what this book has showed me is power is in land. Power is based on the acquisition of property. This is what all the immigrants, which we are not an immigrant to the United States. We are the only non-immigrant here in the United States.
Right.
Everybody that came here, they came here based on the promise of liberty, life, liberty, and pursuit, not happiness. They changed that, but it was property. It's nobody, as
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Claude Anderson says all the time, nobody would get on a voyage on a ship to sail 3 to 4 months to come to America to be happy. You could be happy in a closet, like you could be happy in a closet. Let's leave it like that.
Okay. Absolutely.
But they didn't. They came in for property, and one of the things that was part of that property was us, because we have been reduced to 3/5 of a human being, which is on the level of an
Right.
animal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so they use our labor to build this country, but now, and to enrich this country and to enrich the elites throughout the world.
Now.
Now, today, with the
Mm-hmm.
unraveling of this nation, we want to say, like our Jewish brothers say, never again. So this time, and I'm going back to your question, what should we be doing now? We should be doing that, what we're doing, bringing us up to our past, because history is the best evidence to reward our research on going forward. And so history is also a springboard. So what we should be doing now, since our travel is curtailed, we have more time at home. We have more time with family. We need to be discussing family businesses where we start to looking at ways and means of coming out of this millionaires because in all crises there are millionaires and billionaires made after that.
Okay, can you see me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you now, brother. Please.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, like you said, we need to get together and try to organize and see what resources we can pull together to create a launching point, if you will, or some type of pot everyone could have on reach in. Um, so, as far as some of those things, let's see. Could you give a few examples of something for the people who may not know how to even begin? How could people begin to plan? Like, do they need to meet up? Do we need to get business owners on the same page? Some type of collective database. Because the only way this is going to work, like you said, is if we actually come together and unify instead of trying to compete against each other the whole entire way.
Well, here at Black Wall Street and the Courage to Change, we have a slogan here. It's I would like to thank Brother Marvin Hobbs, who actually have put it into a hashtag. Brain power equals economic development. And where we get this from, in 1961, after being asked by President John F. Kennedy when he campaigned on a platform
Mm-hmm.
of wanting to do the moon exploration. He wanted to go up to the moon, and that's what he campaigned on. So after he became president, he reached out, just so happened in Huntsville, Alabama, the
Mm-hmm.
rocket city where we reside right now. He reached out to a German scientist named Werner von Braun to ask him what it would take to build a contraption, take our people to the moon and back safely. And one of Ron Brown wisely said, the will to do it. He didn't talk about monies at that time,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't talk about human resources. He didn't talk about any of that. He says the will to do it. And that's a big word when you look at will. Will is connected with God through the mind of individuals that are seeking to advance and to create in the space or in the
Mm-hmm.
space of time, really. But
Well
Warner
said.
Brown Brown said the will to do it. Then he went on to go to secure a $3 million grant or loan from the Alabama legislature, and he pointed out at that he pointed out at that meeting, it is university climate that brings the business. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's not water, it's not real estate, it's all labor or cheap taxes that bring industry to a state, a city, and with this, I would say to a community like ours that are like it. He says it is brain power. So what he wanted to do with this $3 million was to bring a campus from the University of Alabama that is located in
Tuscaloosa.
Tuskegee, Tuscaloosa.
Mm.
I'm fairly new to Alabama, so you got to help me out there.
That's
The
all right.
Tuscaloosa brought a campus here for the specific purpose of training people into the technology phase that he needed the brain power to be developed on. And so now I'm saying to our people, as you know, by looking at our community, and I've lived all over this country, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, Southwest, South. Now I'm in Huntsville, Alabama. I've lived all over, and I see a similar situation in our community, which is really called the community, but it's not. It's a neighborhood, and then we have taken the neighbor out of it, and now it's classified as a hood.
Mm-hmm.
So now what we need is brain power because with this current education system, they have dumbed us because we never really wanted to, they never really wanted to see us come above that three-fifths of a human being by robbing us of the knowledge of ourselves, the
Hmm.
knowledge of our God, the knowledge of our history, the knowledge of our language, the knowledge of our sojourn in the space of time from the creation of God. We don't know that. Our young people, Brother Daniel, don't
Hmm.
even know our current history. So
Wow.
what I'm saying, and I say it a lot because you got me real passionate today, brother.
Okay. All right.
But go ahead. I'll come back to that. I want to come back to that.
Um.
But what? Let me finish this though.
Go ahead.
What he did with this $3 million loan or grant or whatever it was, he created a technology center here in Huntsville that now fast forward to 2020, 2020, now brings in to the city of Huntsville from 20 to 40 billion dollars a year in government contracts every year. Not bad for a $3 million
The
investment, isn't it?
investment, right?
Okay. So I'm saying that to say we got that same potential. They owe us more than 3 million. People are talking about reparation.
Hmm.
Reparation, but we need education. And this is what the platform Black Wall Street, the Courage to Change, and my company, Genesis 15 Investment, where we invest in underutilized people.
I see. And like you were saying, when it came to getting money in education, you were saying that it's important uh, when it comes to educating our people on money. Because say if these stimulus checks were to come out, just for example, and the reparations is what I wanted to point out. If we were to get the reparations, what are we going to do with it? Do we know how should we spend it? How should we build with it? And I think that that type of information has not been on the mainstream in the community. And like you said, once you get those funds or what may have you, how do you maintain it? And that education is what will help maintain that and to put that in the right pockets for growth, if you will. And I just think that was an excellent point you were saying. Um, so yes, when it comes to creating power, we have to come together and create some sort of basis that we can all agree upon and step up together.
Yes, sir. That's a very good point. But education has to be at the forefront
Yes, indeed.
because we have to understand who we are. We
Right.
have to get a knowledge of ourselves and a knowledge of our connection to one another. We have to learn the value of us because we
Hmm.
have been placed in an inferior complex or inferior category based on skin color, and
Hmm.
whites have been placed on a superior totem pole on the basis of skin color. It's not skin. Dr. Martin Luther King said it's not your it's the content of your character, not your skin color. So
Hmm.
we have to be taught first who we are, how we built.
Hmm.
Just recently in this after slavery, you have a Black Wall Street, Tulsa. That's a great example because it's the greatest example because it was documented. But there were Black Wall Street or people that named it Black Wall Street because of our economic advancement that we made just up from slavery without not the $3 million, not even the the 40 acres and a mule and the $100 or $150 that we were promised. And when Abraham Lincoln so-called emancipated, the president that preceded him vetoed that bill. So we got nothing. And these people
Hmm.
came up, our brothers and sisters came up from slavery and built wealth all throughout this country. Tulsa had 35 blocks of businesses where a dollar did not leave that community for 100 days. Today, we need to be educated on money because you mentioned the term spend. Spending is no power at all.
Hmm.
Spending is consumer has no power. Is investment in land, in opportunities, in services, in products. This is where you get, and this is what Black Wall Street did all throughout the country. All the brothers and sisters that were labeled as Black Wall Street, they wasn't trying to be no Black Wall Street, but they were black and they was creating an economy. So
Hmm.
what we have to do is understand as an individual, we should never receive reparation as an individual,
Okay.
because individual will go and spend it. We
Right.
came here as a group, we worked as a group, we get repaired as a group with heads. And the
Excellent.
head of our black body should not be a freak with a white head on it. The head of our body has to be a black head, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about somebody in the government. The government has failed us, and with the unraveling of this country, it shows the limited capacity of our government to protect us, to serve us. Right now, this thing has gotten out of hand because our government really was not prepared. They just came out of during the same time the coronavirus was being foretold and warned about. They had our president on on world news
Mm-hmm.
trying to impeach him on the basis of a lie or something. All of them lied. Hell, excuse me, brother.
It's all right. Speak your mind.
Man, but we got to
Yeah.
get together. We got to get together. I want to share a story with you. A brother that I learned about finance, because you ask about finance and learn about money. We have to learn that as a group. We have to learn the value of money. And right now, I'm a member, an affiliate of Carrot Bars International, where our founder and CEO, Carrot Bars, he has presented us with a wonderful movement in gold acquisition in small increment. Gold is God's money. Gold is an asset. The paper that they are printing right now, that 2.2 trillion dollars,
Yes.
that's paper, and they printed it
True.
out it with a drop of a hat, so said, for a crisis. Well, the black community has been in a crisis since we've been up from slavery, since they destroyed the Black Wall Street Tulsa, burned it down to the ground, bombed it, and killed over 300 people that was doing nothing but setting an example on how we could do for ourselves. And just think, Brother Daniel, had that been allowed to live, where we would be today, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Wow.
We would already
Yeah.
be free. And then take it apart, because I'm also a member of the Nation of Islam. In 1975, when the death of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was announced, and I put it on my page all the time, uh, People's Magazine had a front page article stating, asking the question, who will inherit the $80 million in asset or empire built by a man that only went to the fourth grade of schooling? And he organized people as we are doing here with underutilized people that was considered nothing. He took them and taught them a knowledge of themselves, taught them the value of themselves, and taught us, I should say us now, because I was included in that, uh, how to go for self. We became so productive. We was imported, doing trade, import, export. We exported the largest shipment of fish from Peru. We had imports coming from Japan in the form of clothing. We had other fish product coming from Nigeria. We had just got an offer from Idi Amin in what country was he in? Not Ghana. Uh, Idi Amin, I forgot. I'm sorry, I'm talking fast. But he had offered his country's resources to the Nation of Islam, right there in 76, 77. We had people that was going doing trade with foreign countries. Just think if that would have been allowed. It's in 75 when that was on the front page of People magazine, the $80 million in asset. In
Mm-hmm.
1977, which I was a part of the business then, uh, in 1977, we had nothing. We had nothing. The government set upon us and locked down all of our businesses that was productive in all the cities throughout America. We had people self-employed, creating employment, taking people off of the street, drug addict, prostitute, crooks and all that. We all know about Malcolm history.
Hmm.
Malcolm would have never got this kind of accolades if it would not been an arena like the Nation of Islam. And this is what the Black Wall Street movement is about now, to build the kingdom of God with Christ as the head, not no president.
I see. So some may wonder, I know I think to wonder, what you mentioned with the Nation of Islam and Black Wall Street, if that was destroyed, deliberately, that's on U.S. soil. And I seen something where the attack on Black Wall Street was one of the first attacks on U.S. soil by the own government. So why would you go to that extent to extinguish something that is growing? And then, like you said, all of that wealth, all of that thriving that was going on. What was the problem? We were in our own town, doing what we have to do to survive and build, and you just come along and destroy it. How backwards does it have to be? But moving on, you said the inferiority. We have the complex, the mental complex. Dr. Claude Anderson mentioned some social engineering, like you were saying, the three-fifths of a human being. That has a psychological effect, because if someone doesn't know who they are, who they come from, that perspective, you can become lost and you can be shifted around. But once you're provided that information, you can ground yourself. And if you think about it, like you said, a lot of that is missing. And I think a lot of grounding, as far as in our community, um, is missing. And it has been uprooted, so it needs to be replanted in order for this thing to flourish. So, could you share some things about um, how this inferiority complex has affected our community, and how could we change it? Because he also mentioned crabbing. That's something that came from the slave days. You get rewarded for telling on someone. And that exists today. So, could you share some enlighten us on what your ideas are about that?
Yes, brother. This is what happens when you are enslaved mentally.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, when they took the ability of us to read and write for over 300 years, and then after they so called freed us, said, "Come and now let me teach you."
Mm.
Malcolm X, I think, is one that said, "How do you expect a man to teach you right that never treated you right?" You know, that's a awakening question for us.
Uh,
So that takes me to what is needed. We need to build a new curriculum in the school. Social integration, putting black children in schools with whites, was not the answer. It was the curse
hmm.
that we endure, and we are seeing it now in our young generation. We have a pipeline from the middle school to the prison industrial complex, working for Fortune 500 companies in prison for pennies. And when they get out, they can't get a job with them. So that continues. We need a new curriculum. I was on a talk show a few months ago on brother Carlito Muhammad's California Radio, and
Hmm.
I talked about the need for a new curriculum for blacks because what we have, what we were given is the three R's in our educational system, but we are failing in that. We're failing in the three R's because they left out the three S's that is needed for us, which is self knowledge, self awareness, self esteem. All of these words that start with self, because self tells us about the nature. The word self means nature. We were taken out of our nature the same as a cub lion getting taken out of a jungle and being raised by a master, a trainer. And that's what we have. We have trained, educated, or trained academic people today. When you take a cub out of a cub lion out of the jungle and teach them how to do tricks, and then you give them little stifling, you give them a treat every time they do something right, and you whip them and punish them every time they do something wrong. So they would rather the treat rather than the whipping. So that's the same thing when you talked about the crabbing.
Mm-hmm.
Our people was working for the master to stop Negroes that was had an idea of freedom. Malcolm talked about this also. He talked about it was three. I'm gonna use the word just as he used it. He say it was the field nigger, the yard nigger, and the house nigger. But they all was niggers. But the yard nigger was the most dangerous one because he could smell the cooking coming from the yard, from the house of master. He could
Mm-hmm.
smell the perfume. And when the field niggers got to acting up, y'all have to excuse me because I'm gonna talk frank today. Uh, 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 when the yard nigga, I mean the field nigga got to acting up, the yard nigga was the most dangerous because he would tell master, your field niggas is acting up, master, because he thought he would get him a better position in the house.
Mm-hmm.
In the house, because he wanted to get next to Miss Ann with all that nice perfume on.
Now,
And
wouldn't they call that Stockholm syndrome? Is that some sort of stock? You know, would it
uh,
relate to that?
it's got a lot of things, but it's all
Mm-hmm.
boiled down to social engineering.
Right.
It
Mm-hmm.
all boils down. We could put whatever label we want on it, but it comes down to that got to be fixed. And the audience have
Mm-hmm.
to excuse me because those words, I'm coming out with some more streams myself, Brother Daniel, that's going to talk about the race issue. But I don't want to seem insensitive to the time right now. But I am pained right now. I mean, I just on Sunday morning at 1 o'clock, I just lost my twin brother due
Sorry
to
to hear.
some mistreatment,
Mm-hmm.
miseducation, and mistreatment by this current medical system. All these systems has been set against us, and it's all due to public policy. We talk about government. There are three tiers of rulers, or three tiers level in this United States or in the world. You have the elites with all the money. That's the 3% that own 97% of the wealth. Then you have the management, which is government in all these countries. Then you have the laborers, which is us. And right now, with technology, the laborers are not needed as much today. So this is why I am so happy to utilize the technical advantage that we have now through live streaming, because the mainstream media, brother, the corporate media, who Trump called false or fake media, has ruled out community advocate like myself, like yourself. We don't have a voice in the corporate media anymore. So this is why I am so, brother, excited about you taking on. I know this is not your field, but you're going to be great at it. I can tell you now. All you have to do is continue learning, humbling yourself, and having the love for the people that you came from today and give back. You are a great example of what we need, but we need to highlight that. We need to showcase that. We need to edify that. And a lot more young people like yourself will come on to this courage to change. It's not based on religion, it's not based on politics. It's based on a movement based on education, whereas we can develop the brain power that is needed for economic development. And we need to come out of this crisis running, not walking. And we don't need to be sitting now. We need to be meeting with each other. I know it's social distance, but we also have the Zoom platform. We have many platforms where we could meet. In fact, that's the way I lost my limousine business in 2008, 2009, because when the economy crashed, the corporations stopped paying for town car services, for limousine service, to take their employees to make deals with other companies. $1 million deals now, $1 billion deals start being made on teleconferencing calls, on
Right.
webinars. So this is where we are right now. We need to plan. We need to get in a room together, and Zoom platform give us a room environment, a room meeting
So
platform.
in other words, we can say there's no true excuse anymore, huh? Yeah,
No,
there's no excuse.
Right, and we shouldn't use this crisis as an excuse for not for sitting on our
For sitting on
behind.
our behinds. Okay.
Yeah, I want to say something else because I don't want to turn people off because man, I'm a former sailor. I did two tours of duty in Vietnam on ships, you know. So you know
Uh
the
huh.
saying about a
The saying.
sailor.
Uh huh.
Yeah, yeah. See, I got it. I'm a righteous man. I'm a
Yeah.
man of the cloth, but I still got it.
Okay. Okay. They call it how you see it, huh?
Yeah, yeah, brother Daniel, I appreciate you, man. But this is your show, man.
All right.
This is your
Yeah.
show.
Again, I'd like to thank you for coming on and shedding so much light on some of those topics we mentioned. Um, we talked about social engineering, and let's see. When it comes to the book Black Labor, White Wealth, he mentioned the public edict.
Hmm.
Where it says blacks can't enjoy the fruits of the whites. In what ways does that still exist today? Like you said, some things have been changed around and amended. So, is there some? Can you enlighten us on any codes or anything that we should be aware of? How we can work around them. To be at most advantage.
Well, I'll tell you what, we need to set up a nation of our own. We need to set up because those things are lock and stock. We can't change that. We
Okay.
would we would be another 400 years trying to
Ah.
change that that's already fixed. Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad you mentioned those codes because during the Dred Scott decision, it was codified into law in the Supreme Court that a black man had no rights where a white man had to obey it. And when Dred Scott went to the Supreme Court, he was shot down for his wanting to be free and to get the Supreme Court according to the Constitution. But the Constitution is the one where the problem started. Okay, now you asked, had it been obliterated or done away with?
Yes.
Well, our brother Byron Allen is a great example. He just was attempting to sue Comcast and a couple of others, I
I
think,
see.
but Comcast was his major opponent there, and he had won a decision on the in the lower court, but Comcast took it over to the Supreme Court, and Byron Allen had an ironclad case if they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do justice, because he went back to the 1865-66 civil rights bill that only mentioned black slaves, ex-slaves in that civil rights bill. The more
Mm-hmm.
modern one talks about everybody that has not been uniquely enslaved like we have. And he went back to that law, that civil rights law, and still the Supreme Court says he had no case. So this is codified that a black man don't have a right that a white man has to obey and honor and recognize. So we need to wake up, and this
Well.
is what this Courage to Change news media is going to do. Bring things. This is our first stream. This is our coming out
Sure.
party,
Mm-hmm.
and I know we got a lot more in us. We got a lot more for you. And but I want to say to anyone that's listening, uh, please somebody type in HTTP colon forward slash tctcnow.com in the chat box. I want to I want to share this with, not tell anybody because you're a grown ass man and woman, but I want to just say go to that website. There's two tabs I'd like to point out. One is the contact page on that. Put in your contact information. If we're talking about something, uh, if you have problems with what we're talking about, if you have something that you want to talk about, if you want to become a guest on this news stream, hit that contact page and put in your information. And we have a comment section there. Put in your information. We will get back with you. Our phone number to our office is 256-945-4515. Please type that into the chat box. 256-945-4515. And we are limited staff. So if you call that number, leave a message and someone will get back to you. Also, there's another tab on that because we're a small group. We are nonprofit 501c3. Hit that donation tab. It's a tax deductible dollar that is tax deductible for the dollars that you help us with. Everybody fund their own nonprofit instead of worrying about paying taxes to the government so they can create more wars and give more monies to countries that don't need it and skimp on our community. Again, we don't need to hit that donation tab. First of all, I want to say that again, because we need funds. It's going to go directly to our Black Wall Street account, and we're going to do wisely with it, just as Warner Von Braun did with that $3 million that created brain power and developed economic power. And we're going to go after some of that reparation money, but stop thinking about this $1,200 stifling check, man, that's coming to individuals. If it gets to you, it's not going to be enough when you get it because this world is suffering right now. And when they go back, it's going to be we going into some dark time. But with knowledge, with understanding, with wisdom, there's a
Hmm.
light at the end of the tunnel. And with our
Okay.
unity, see, right now we like this as people. If we get like this, we become a force. If we get like this, we are a power. Let's unite and
Hmm.
let's do for self. Let's talk to each other and stop being an individual as a
And
black person in America, and let's come up out of slavery. Let's utilize this time of rest and relaxation. Let's utilize this to do to start organizing and talking about ways to increase our ability to take advantage. The world is waiting for us. I'm going to close with this. I was in Detroit in February at our annual Saviors Day convention, and I attended international workshop. I'm just sorry that they didn't record that. That was a valuable workshop. We had people from all over the world at that workshop crying for the black man and woman in America to wake up because their countries is waiting on us. We are the richest blacks, and not African Americans. We're talking about blacks that united with blacks in Africa, blacks in Brazil, blacks in South Africa. I mean South America, blacks in the Caribbean, all the islands in Belize and all that. They were there saying Haiti is another country. They were there asking us. We had some couple from Korea that was there talking about if the black man and woman with all their technical skills, all of their wealth, all of the people, we over 50 million people in America. If we wake up and start going to these countries, not to take selfies, but to see what we could do with our intellectual prowess that we have, our financial. We don't need to go there to go lay on the beach. We need to find out what we could do because we did not give up our rights in Africa. They we were stolen from there. We have more rights than the Indians that are over there, the Chinese that are in there, the Europeans that's over there. We need to take our country back. We don't have to live there. We got dual citizenship rights, just like a lot of other countries. But we are the only non-immigrant. All of these other people that have come, the Greeks, the people from Britain, the other countries that have come here, they still got dual citizenship in their country.
I see. I see. And I wanted to go back to what you mentioned, the Byron Island case with Comcast. Like you were saying, that we're still in a certain predicament right now, and nothing can really change unless we just take it upon ourselves to do it. Like you said, create that head. And I want to close out with what Claude Anderson mentioned with empowerment. He believes that it is a psychological self confidence. So when it comes to this inferiority, on like he said, on believing that we can compete and create our own things, we would just want to make sure we can enliven our people with that psychological self confidence and knowledge, like you said, to guide us through this dark time. Because knowledge is light, and light is what we ultimately hope to shed.
Yes, brother. Yes, brother. You're on it. But education, remember, the
Hmm.
word education comes
Hmm.
from the root word. I think it's a Spanish word, el duco, which means to draw out of you. What we have
Latin.
been under the direction of trainers that have trained us, put things in us that's against us. We
Hmm.
have a saying in scripture that says we hurdle truth at falsehood until we knock out his brains, because falsehood have a place on our brain. So when we think about doing something right, falsehood come and say, "Oh, that's wrong." So we got to educate our people into the rightness. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad did it, and he did it so successful. And this is why you see someone like me that after 40 some years, 49 years of studying, I didn't have no script. I didn't have a script, but
Hmm.
I can talk about things like they are present. I could
Hmm.
talk about the origin of God like they're present. I could
Hmm.
talk about the origin of the sun, moon, and stars, the creation of the races that we're dealing with. I could talk about that, but that's going to be for another show. Brother Daniel, I appreciate you, man.
No,
I
thank
don't
you.
know how long it's
Hmm.
been, but as you know me, I'm long winded.
Oh man, there's always some wisdom, you catch out of that. So no worries, no worries. Again, Brother Hillman, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And thank you for joining us on our first stream. We hope that you come back and sit with us and visit with us. And like I said, just stay with us as we continue to grow and plant seeds and grow roots. Um,
Brother Daniel, may I say something? We have
uh,
to put that phone number in